nature does not love you. A sand tiger shark devours its own siblings before it is even born, inside its mother. A mother rabbit visits the nest to nurse for about 5 minutes a day, and otherwise all but ignores the babies she made. Most animals on Earth would step over your dying body without breaking stride, and feel absolutely nothing. 4 billion years of evolution, and almost none of it was ever built to care whether you live or die. But there is one animal that does. One animal that runs to the door when it hears your car 3 streets away, that can pick your face out of a crowd of thousands, or find you by scent alone under a collapsed building, that will lie down on a fresh grave and refuse to leave. We call it a dog. And the strangest part isn't that it loves us, it's that we can measure the love in hormones, in muscles, in specific broken genes. And every time we look closer, we find the same thing looking back. So this isn't really a story about dogs. It's a story about 2 predators who reached across the dark and remade each other. One of them was us. Start with the eyes, because that's the part that sounds like pure sentiment and turns out to be pure chemistry. In 2015, a team led by Takefumi Kikusui at Azabu University in Japan ran a quietly staggering experiment. They put dogs and their owners in a room and simply let them look at each other. Then they measured a hormone called oxytocin, the same molecule that floods a mother's body when she holds her newborn, the chemical bedrock of the bond between a parent and a child. When the dog gazed into its owner's eyes, the owner's oxytocin climbed. That made the owner touch and talk to the dog more, which pushed the dog's oxytocin up in return, which made it gaze more. Owner to dog to owner, a loop. Each one dosing the other with the love hormone through nothing but eye contact. Then they ran the same test on wolves raised by humans since birth. Nothing. The loop didn't fire. This is the exact machinery a human mother and her infant used to fall in love. Somehow, a completely different species reached in and wired itself into the same circuit. Your dog isn't imitating a child gazing up at you. As far as your body can tell, it is one. Now look just above those eyes. In 2019, a researcher named Julianne Kaminsky laid out the dissected faces of dogs beside the faces of wolves and found something that should not be there. Dogs have a small muscle at the inner corner of each eyebrow, the levator anguli oculi medialis. Wolves, almost without exception, do not. That muscle does exactly one thing. It hauls the inner eyebrow up, fast and high, and makes the eyes look bigger, softer, sadder, more like a human infant's. It is the precise face a dog makes at you through the car window, the adopt me face. The face that has ended more diets and won more arguments than any words ever could. Here is why that muscle is unsettling. It didn't exist in the wolf. It grew across the short time dogs have lived with us, because the dogs who could pull that face got fed, got kept, got to have puppies, and the ones who couldn't, didn't. We were the selection pressure. Every time one of your ancestors looked at a half-wild dog, felt that tug in the chest, and slitted a scrap of meat, they were slowly carving a new muscle into the faces of its descendants. Dogs did not learn puppy eyes. We bred them in, one pulled heartstring at a time. And then there is what's happening behind the eyes. Point at something, a toy, a door, a spot on the floor, and your dog looks where you're pointing. That sounds like nothing. It is not nothing. Chimpanzees, our closest relatives, who share almost all of our DNA, are hopeless at it. They just stare at your finger. Wolves mostly don't get it either. But a dog, even a 2-month-old puppy that has never been trained, that has barely met a person, follows the point on the very first try. Somewhere in the making of a dog, this animal grew an instinct to track human attention, to check our faces, to treat the direction of our gaze as information about the world. Human babies begin doing the same thing at roughly the same point in their development. We spent millions of years evolving to read each other. Dogs did it in a sliver of that time by learning to read us instead. So the love is real, and it's specific. And it's written into the body in ink we can actually read, which leaves the harder question, where did it come from? No animal simply decides to adore another species. Something had to build this, one step at a time. And the story of how has two halves, one that happened to them and one, very quietly, that happened to us. It probably began at the edge of the firelight, at least 15,000 years ago, maybe far longer. Not with a human cradling an orphaned wolf pup, that's a fairy tale. It began with garbage. Wherever people camped, they left bones and scraps, and the boldest wolves crept in to scavenge. A wolf that panicked and bolted went hungry. A wolf that could hold its nerve near a human ate. So the calmest, least fearful, friendliest wolves ate a little better, survived a little longer, raised a few more pups, who inherited that same steadiness. Nobody chose them on purpose. They chose the fire, and the fire selected them. Generation after generation, the fear thinned out and the tolerance thickened, until the animals loitering at the edge of camp weren't quite wolves anymore. Evolution's oldest tool, survival of the fittest, quietly ran in reverse. Out here, at the rim of the human world, the fittest meant the friendliest. We know this can happen fast, because a Soviet scientist proved it almost by accident. In 1959, a geneticist named Dmitry Belyaev began breeding silver foxes on a farm in Siberia, the snapping, terrified kind raised for their fur. His rule was brutally simple. Every generation, his team tested the foxes and let only the tamest few percent, the ones least frightened of a human hand, become parents. That was the single trait he selected for: calmness, nothing else. He was not choosing for looks, but the looks came anyway. Within about 10 generations, foxes were wagging their tails at people, whimpering for attention, licking the hands and faces of the scientists. And their bodies had started to change on their own. Floppy ears, curling tails, blotches of white spreading across their coats, softer and rounder and more puppy-like faces. He had pulled one lever, friendliness, and a dozen other things moved with it. It turns out that tameness and a sweet, juvenile, lovable appearance are tied to the same deep biological switches. Select for the animal that trusts you, and you get, thrown in for free, the animal that looks and behaves like it loves you. Belyaev compressed into 40 years what the campfire had spent 15,000 doing to wolves. And we can now start to name those switches. In 2017, a biologist named Bridget von Holt went digging through dog DNA for what truly separates a dog from a wolf. She found part of it on chromosome 6, a cluster of genes, among them two called GTF2I and GTF2IRD1, disrupted in dogs in a way they are not in wolves. Here is the part that should stop you cold. In humans, when that same stretch of genes is missing, the result is a condition called Williams-Buren syndrome, and one of its defining features is a personality. Extraordinarily warm, trusting, socially fearless. People who love almost without limit, who greet a stranger like a friend they've been missing for years. The same genetic region that can make a human overwhelmingly, unguardedly loving appears, when it's altered in a dog, to help make a dog overwhelmingly, unguardedly loving too. Your dog's frantic, tail-whipping, whole-body joy the instant you walk through the door may be, in part, the canine echo of a human syndrome of too much love. We didn't only breed dogs to be friendly. We may have reached into their genome and switched off the very part that lets a wolf hold something back. But notice what all of this has in common. The gaze that doses us with oxytocin, the muscle that fakes an infant's face, the genes tuned toward helpless trust. Every one of them is aimed at us. None of them are adaptations for surviving in the wild. They are adaptations for surviving inside the human heart. We were the environment the dog evolved to fit. The forest that shaped it was us. And here's the thing we rarely say out loud. It ran both ways. That oxytocin loop, the one the wolves could never trigger, it fires in the human, too. Our bodies changed to answer them. We are the only species on Earth that reads another animal's face as though it were family, that grieves a dog like a person, that will spend a fortune and a sleepless week keeping one alive. Somewhere across those 15,000 years, we didn't just tame the wolf reached back and tamed a part of us. Two hunters who by every law of nature should have been rivals over the same carcass instead turned and wired themselves into one another. Go back to the oldest dog we have ever found. 14,000 years ago, in what is now Germany, someone buried a puppy. It had been gravely sick as a pup, a disease that should have killed it, and it survived only because, for weeks, a human hand fed it and kept it warm, while it could give absolutely nothing back. And when it finally died, they laid it in the ground beside two of their own people, as one of them. That is the whole story, already finished, before recorded history even begins. Not a tool, not livestock, a creature we had already remade in the image of our own children, lying in a human grave. Nature never built an animal to love us. It had no reason to, and every reason not to. So over 20,000 years, out of a wolf and a campfire and our own bottomless need not to be alone in the dark, we built one ourselves. And it worked. It worked so completely that we can no longer find the seam, the place where the wild animal ends and the thing we made of it begins, where its love for us stops and our need for it starts. The dog is looking at you right now through eyes wired to yours, with a face we carved, feeling something real that we spent 20,000 years teaching it to feel. And the most human thing about you is that you look back and you fall for it every single time.